Hello, welcome back. I'm faculty Blankson from CapacityBay.org, and I'm your instructor for today's topic. In our previous class, we talked about the CSS collectors, and we made mention of the ID selector and the class selector. So in this section, we'll be seeing how we can use the CSS selector and the ID selector to work on an HTML page. So without further ado, let's dive in. So I already have the project set up in my Visual Studio Code. As you can see, I have my index.html file and my style.css file. So using the Visual Studio shortcut, I'm going to create my HTML templates to work with. So here I'm going to change the title to class versus ID. So briefly, let's talk about class and ID. Class and ID, as we already know, are CSS selectors. But the difference between the class and the ID is that the class is preceded with a full stop, while an ID is preceded by an hash symbol. So here, an example, I'll create, using a shortcut, I'll create a div with a class. I'll call it top. Now, inside the div, I'm going to create an h1 tag with an ID. As you can see, I'm using hash now for ID, and I use dot for the class. So I'll give it an ID of intro. An ID of intro. Then I'll call it CapacityBay. Then I'll give it a p tag. This is a class. I'll give it a class. Let's say this should be an header. So I'll say an header because that's the header text. Then I'll say intro and the p tag, and I'll say welcome. So welcome to CapacityBay. Where we build capacity. I'll now create a tag of ID, and I'll give it summary, and I'll say goodbye. So we finished this. So we are going to style them. So first we are going to style the div. Here in the style, we use class for the top, so I will now use full stop now to style using the top, the name of the class, and it is preceded by the full stop. Then I'll give it a background. Let me use tag. The background. Giving the padding to wrap around its contents. I'll give it the padding of 8 pixels. So we've styled our class top. Now the next step is to style our ID of header. Then remember the difference between the class and the ID is that the class selector is preceded with by a full stop, while the ID selector is preceded with the hash symbol. So yeah, since our header ID, since it's an ID, the header is an ID, so we use hash and we say header. So our header, I'll give our header a color of, let's say, green. Then I'll move the text to the center. No, let's see. I didn't link the CSS, sorry. So we come here, we link the CSS file. Let's take a look at it again. Okay, so we have CapacityBay here. Then I'll come here and I'm going to style our intro, which is a beta and it's an ID. So an ID is a class. Let's confirm that it is a class. So class is preceded by a full stop, and the name of the class is intro. So I'll open that. So also give it a color. Let's say white. And also align it to the center. The last one is a summary, and it's a goodbye, and it's an ID. So I'll say ID summary, and I'll give it a color of orange, red, and also align it to the center of the screen. So let's see what we got. So as you can see, I've used the selectors to select each table tag, and I've styled them using the selectors. So we now know how to use IDs, HTML selectors. We now know how to use ID. This is preceded by a hash sign, and we now know how to use a class which is preceded with a full stop. So with this, we've come to the end of this section. If you have any question, drop that in the comment section below. Like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell notification icon to get notified whenever a new video is dropped. See you in the next section. Thank you.